Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network. I am your host, Ryan. Here with me, as every Wednesday, is Tim. Tim, how you doing this Wednesday?
I'm pretty good. The long day at work, getting a little bit of overtime hours.
That's
Which
not
I
too
need.
bad.
Yeah.
I mean, overtime, can be a good thing sometimes. And
You ain't lying.
naturally, as every Wednesday,
Welcome to Fantasy Football Weekly.
thank you to that, Robert Winans. Go ahead, check him out. He's a Twitch gamer. He makes some really great content. He is also on TikTok. RZRX1 stands for Razorback 11. Thank you to our social media managers. Thank you to Orphan Rivers for providing us with fantastic intro music every single week. So, we're going to get right into it. So the topic of this week's show, we're looking at some DFS plays. It has come to my attention that my running partner here on the Wednesday fantasy football episode had really no idea how to play DFS. And I was like, well, that makes for a fantastic show topic. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get right to it. If you have any start-sit questions, guys, please feel free to ask them. We will answer them in the comments. We are not just, going to ignore you guys because we have a different topic today. However, for those of you that have played DFS or don't know what DFS is and want to get into it, there's no end all be all way that's you're going to cash out every time. There's always, injuries could happen. Guys could just absolutely crap the bed. They could have really bad performances. Anything can happen in the world of sports, and that's why it's called gambling, because you're taking a risk. However, the strategies that we're going to talk about today, I have implemented, and I can personally say that I cash out more often than I do not. So the strategy works for me too. You can make a come up at the end of the season. Ken Brandt asks a great question. What does DFS stand for? So it stands for Daily Fantasy Sports. Obviously, we're going to be talking about football today because it's football season, and that's the most popular DFS out there. We're going to focus on the classic setup where you get your $50,000 budget, your 9-person lineup. You get 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex, and 1 defense. So we will cover all of that in this episode. I will go over my strategy for how I pick these teams and why I do things the way that I do things. So I have designed, and I don't do this every week because this is a little extensive. I made this chart for the viewers. It gives you guys a good look at what goes through my mind while I'm making these picks. So, Tim, if you could keep an eye on comments.
I got you.
Okay, so I tried to do my best here. Obviously, I'll explain all of the information on here. So in the very far left column, we have the matchup. That's kind of obvious. And in parentheses is the spread. So there's a minus next to all the teams that are giving points. And what the spread is in football is Las Vegas, the odds makers over there, who are fantastic at their job, as smart as everybody who gambles thinks that they are. They think they always have the edge on Vegas. These guys do this for a living, and there's a reason that they do it. So what Vegas says plays heavily into how I set my DFS lineups. So what I'm doing here is we have the away team at the home team and the spread right next to it. So, for example, the top matchup is the Thursday night football matchup. We have Buffalo at New England, and Buffalo is spotting New England 5 points. That's why there's that -5 there. It could also look like Buffalo at New England, parentheses, +5. It's the same thing. For those of you that see that anywhere. So, and then in the next column, we have the game over-under set by Vegas. So Vegas, the over-under set by these guys is 43.5 points. And what that means is Vegas is giving the bettors a chance to bet whether there is going to be more than or less than 43.5 points scored total. I see we have a couple new viewers. For those of you just tuning in, we're going over DFS this week. Obviously, we will still be answering, fan questions throughout the episode, but we're primarily focusing on DFS. I think I had that labeled somewhere at the top of the sheet, but it kind of all blacked out. So, that's what the main topic of the show is today. Game over under, so 43.5 points. And now Vegas will, as you can see down the column, more often than not set a half point because they have to pay everybody back their money if it lands right on the dot. And they don't really want to do that. They want a definite either over or under. So the next category is where it gets, a little personal. This is what I do here. So based on the spread that Vegas has set, which is in the matchup column, and the over-under that Vegas has set, which is in the second column, this is how many points, and I rounded it to the nearest whole number to make it easier for people. This is how many points Vegas is implying that each team is going to score for this game. So they are implying, based on a 43.5-point over-under and a 5-point spread in favor of Buffalo, that Buffalo is going to win this game 24-19. That's actually a pretty realistic score. I would say that that's right about where that's going to go, but we're doing our predictions on Friday, so we'll get more into that in a second. So yeah, and the way that I do DFS, right? So what is the best strategy in DFS? Well, obviously the object is to score as many points as humanly possible. Mm-hmm. So how are we going to set the most effective lineup to do that? Well, two things you got to look at are cost, right? Because we're here looking for value. You can't just load your lineup with Patrick Mahomes and Devontae Adams and Travis Kelce and Jamar Chase and have a whole bunch of studs. That's not how DFS works. You get normally a $50,000 salary cap, depending on what app you use. You get a set salary cap, and the players have a set numerical value. I have no idea what algorithm that these apps or companies use to set this algorithm, but I can tell you that you can use that to your advantage. So I don't normally play DFS matchups that start on Thursday. The matchups I play are the featured ones, which leaves out the Thursday night, Sunday night, and Monday night games. So it's the 1 o'clock and the 4:05, 4:25 start times. Those are the ones I usually play, but I did include the rest of the games for those of you that are feeling a little frisky and want to expand your horizons. So here we got Buffalo scoring 24 points and New England implied scoring 19. And then on the far, I guess it'd be either left or right, the teams by tier column, I sorted the teams out based on who I think has to be in your lineup, who I would recommend a couple of decent plays, and then an absolute no-fly zone. Like I'm not touching them this week. So, Tim, I've been talking a lot here, bud. Easy to understand. Did I explain that well?
Yeah. Especially the home implied and away implied. Like when I saw the document yesterday, I was very confused, and you explained it like right on the tape for me, and you did it again for the viewers, which is amazing. Maybe break down your tiers. Like,
okay. So the tiers, and what I mean by gotta have. So when I say gotta have, the goal of DFS is for me to score the most points that I can. So I am going to build a lineup based on player value, like I just talked about, and games where Vegas, again, the smart people that do this for a living, are implying that the most points are going to be scored. They are saying that these games are going to be the most offensive games. Whether you agree with them or not is kind of irrelevant. No matter how many times you've won in betting, you are not smarter than Vegas. Yeah, if everybody or most of the people were smarter than Las Vegas, they wouldn't exist. So 3 games that jump off the screen to me: Kansas City at Cincinnati. Obviously, you don't need a crystal ball to tell you that one's probably going to be high scoring. That one's probably going to be the highest scoring game of the week. You've got Jacksonville and Detroit, 2 bad defenses, 2 good offenses. That one's also high scoring at 51.5. And then the AFC Los Angeles team and Las Vegas at 50.5. So there are 3 games that Vegas is implying the total points being scored is going to be over 50. Those 3 jump off the page to me. So I put those all of those teams are in my gotta haves. Actually, no, Strong recommends is Vegas. And my explanation behind that is Derek Carr might be, a sleeper play in DFS because he has a little bit lower value. But outside of Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, there aren't too many recommendations I would make. Mac Hollins, I guess, is a little bit of a deeper sleeper if you want to stack, another stud. But he's super hit or miss, super boom or bust. Or Foster Moreau, the tight end. Tight ends are kind of hit or miss, so it depends on his matchup. But so to me, those are gotta haves. You have to build most of your lineup around the gotta haves. Now, I tried my damnedest this week to build my lineup with everybody in the gotta haves, and Vegas and I are on the same page that those players just get too expensive and I can't meet the $50,000 salary cap. while reasonably filling out a good lineup. I'm going to have guys who are just backups playing in my lineup, and that's just not okay. So you got to start picking out other values. Well, another value for me is the AFC New York team versus Minnesota, 45.5 points. Vegas thinks that one's going to be kind of high scoring. I would tend to agree with that, especially with the quarterback play that the Jets or the AFC New York team just had. So I think that they do have some plays. I put them in the have some plays because I'm not 100% sold on Mike White. I'm not 100% sold on Elijah Moore, but I do think that Garrett Wilson is a solid play. I think that if Michael Carter comes back, he could be a solid play as well. The Vikings, specifically on pass defense, are not a very good team. So, but yeah, so that's how I kind of did that tier. And then the no-fly zone, the only exception I would make in this entire no-fly zone is Dameon Pierce from Houston or Denver's defense, because while they don't force a lot of turnovers and get a ton of fantasy points, Denver's defense is very good in real life, so they do hold teams to lower scoring games, and that can help in DFS. When I get to the defense part of it, I'll explain why. So here's how I build my strategy. I look at one of those 3 high-scoring games, and I build my stack and my run back from that. Why? Well, first off, what is a stack and a run back? A stack 95% of the time is consistent of a quarterback and a wide receiver or pass catcher on the same team. You want something like that because you're essentially double dipping on that game, particularly one of those high scoring ones, one of those ones that Vegas is telling you, hey, there's going to be a lot of points here. So, kind of pick from these games. I want the most shares of those games that I can get. So I built my stack and my run back from one of those top 3 teams. Stacks that I like. I like Justin Herbert and Gerald Everett. There's good value there. Justin Herbert is obviously going to be a little bit more on the expensive side. He's an elite quarterback, but that's why I pair him with Gerald Everett. He's a bit of a cheaper tight end. He's matchup based, and he has a fantastic matchup against the Las Vegas defense that just doesn't cover anybody, particularly tight ends.
We got a question, 9.
Okay, what's the question?
So we got, first of all, Z Money said, hey, what's up to everyone?
What's up, Z Money? Welcome back, buddy.
Z Money?
Going over DFS today.
And then Tim Hawkins asks, who are you guys flexing out of people? Jones, Curtis Samuels, Nico Collins, Paris Campbell, Antonio Gibson, and Algier. I don't remember his first name.
Tyler Algier.
Thank you, Tyler Algier. In the standard format.
Why don't you answer that question first? Because I have to sneeze.
Man, this is hard. I gotta go with Antonio Gibson with this. He it looks like he's getting a passing touches from Tyler Heineke. Receptions, sorry, not touches, passing receptions.
It's standard. Keep that in mind.
You're right. Thank you. Oh man. It's so hard.
I know who I'm taking a chance on. I'll just go ahead and say that. One, Nico Collins is not started until further notice, specifically in standard. Paris Campbell, same there. Those guys, one, Nico Collins is in a terrible offense that does not score a lot of points. Even that, a lot of his work is based on volume. He's not an elite yards after catch guy. They're not going to score a lot of touchdowns. You can just sit Nico Collins on a weekly basis until proven otherwise, which is probably next year. Paris Campbell, again, not a great scoring offense, an offense that really revolves around Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman. And again, the games we've seen him blow up, volume work. Standard, I'm probably going to stay away from Curtis Samuel as well. He does get utilized a little bit in the red zone, but since Taylor Heineke's taken over, it's the Terry McLaurin show over there. So Curtis Samuel is also out as well. You can just sit those 3 guys regularly. So it comes down to Gibson, Algier, and Peoples-Jones. This week, I'm not starting Algier, not against Pittsburgh's defense.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm taking a flyer on Donovan Peoples-Jones here. I don't necessarily love it, but at the same time, all you need is one big play. That's the kind of receiver Donovan Peoples-Jones is. And look who's back this week. Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to very heavily target Peoples-Jones. He has a very, he's a big reputation for targeting his number one guy, which is obviously Amari Cooper. But I think all you're hoping for out of this list of names is one big play. And I think Donovan Peoples-Jones does provide the most touchdown upside and most big play upside.
Yeah, I actually agree with that, Ryan. Since you broke down everything else out of there, I think I'm going to go Peoples-Jones too. The big play upside, that's all he is. He can catch the pass 60 yards down the field and run it in for a touchdown easily. So, yeah, give me Peoples-Jones, Tim Hawkins.
Yep, good question. Good question. Appreciate it. And then I don't know if I said it, but what's up, Z Money? Yeah, my pick would be Peoples-Jones with Watson back. I don't think Watson's going to be as good as a lot of people are hoping right off the bat. I mean, this dude hasn't played a football game in 700 days. I'm seeing a lot of analysts rank him top 10, fringe top 10. They're not going crazy top 5. But the variety of outcomes that Deshaun Watson can give you this week is so massive because, yes, he's a great talent on the field. But like I said, he hasn't played football in 700 days. So you really don't know what to expect. However, out of those lists of names, I'm going Peoples-Jones pretty easily there. So back to what's up?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you want me to say it or not, but one of my sit-ons is Deshaun Watson because he hasn't played in so long.
I would probably sit him if there were, if you're debating Deshaun Watson or somebody else, like I'd probably go to the or somebody else. But if Deshaun Watson's clearly the best quarterback on your roster, go ahead and play him. Especially if you've been holding him all season, like you might as well.
Z Money said Watson is lucky he had the safety blanket in Chubb, and he 100% does.
And the interesting part about that's a great point, is the fact that Houston is far and away the worst run defense in the NFL, and they far and away give up the most fantasy points to running backs this year.
Yep.
So when you talk about safety blanket, he couldn't have had a better week to have that safety blanket.
Exactly. He also said, Z Money also said, I'm starting a Njoku this weekend.
Tight ends are rough. I would probably start Njoku this weekend.
Yeah, I think it depends.
He's a fringe tight end one play for me. He's not a true sit-em.
Yeah.
So back to what I was saying here, though. So my stack and run back, I have to build my stack and run back off of one of the top 3 high scoring games. I'm not going to sit here and ignore Vegas giving me the hint, hint, wink, wink that, hey, these 3 games are going to pop off. So I want the most pieces of that. Stacks that I said, Herbert and Everett. You can go Herbert, Keenan Allen. It doesn't sound like Mike Williams is going to play this week. He already missed practice again. I'm not banking on it. You can go Herbert Palmer if you want good value. But I think Herbert Everett is probably where your best value is going to be, especially with outside of Kelsey and Andrews, that tight end position being what it is. Everett has, a great matchup. And if Mike Williams misses, that just means that Everett's probably going to see more targets. Speaking of Travis Kelce, we're going to move to the Kansas City game. I hate all stacks in the Kansas City game. And here's why I hate all stacks. Patrick Mahomes is expensive because he's a great quarterback who's going to consistently produce. Travis Kelce is expensive because he's a great tight end. He's the best tight end in fantasy football who constantly produces. I'm not blowing a third of my DFS salary cap on 2 guys and then being forced to start a bunch of Kareem Hunts after that and hope that, a couple of them hit. That, to me, that's not a good strategy. I'd love, I get that Mahomes, Kelsey is an enticing stack because they're going to produce no matter what, but there's just not a lot of value there. I think Kelsey's rated at $7,900 and Mahomes is like $8,200. That's just there's no value there for me. It's just not worth it.
We got one more question real quick.
Yeah, what's up?
We got Z Money. Pick a flex. Pollard, Pittman, Pierce, and Juju. He said he thinking Pollard.
He thinks Pollard. None of those are. I'm not a huge fan of Juju. To me, he sticks out the most, so you can eliminate him. Not that I think he's going to be bad. I just think that the other ones, could potentially be better.
Now that's a PPR, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ryan? Z Money.
I'm gonna assume it's PPR. Not digging Michael Pittman either. I think he has a tougher matchup against Dallas, and actually, that leads into my implied points. Vegas has Indianapolis as one of the lowest implied point scores. I think they're the third lowest on the slate this week. So if you can, fade some of their offense. Jonathan Taylor, obviously a must start. But if you have better options than Michael Pittman, I would assume going elsewhere. So to me, it's between Pollard and Pierce. For me, it depends. It depends on what you really need. So Pierce, while his usage has gone down the last 3 weeks, does have a great matchup. Cleveland's defense has not been good this year. As you can see, the poorest Houston offense, according to Vegas, is projected to score 20 points, which is a lot for an offense that bad. Meanwhile, you want every share of Dallas you can get. So I think if you're looking for something safe, if you're looking for a safe floor, I'm going Dameon Pierce here. I think if you want some massive upside, you're going Tony Pollard here.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ryan. I think I might. I guess it depends if you're already in the playoffs or fighting for a playoff spot. If you're not fighting for a playoff spot, I would start Pollard to see what he got. If you're fighting for one, I would start Pierce trying to get the points guaranteed.
Yeah, it's all really what you're looking at. You know, if you're projected to lose your matchup by 20 points, and I know projections are not the end all be all, but they can at least steer you in the right direction. Then I would go ahead and put Pollard in there. You need all the upside you can get. But if you're projected to win, 10 points or so, go ahead and start Dameon Pierce. Got a good matchup.
Exactly. Then Z Money asks, do you know if Mixon's playing or not? He
Should
did.
be back.
He logged
limited. He was limited today.
Limited. Yeah, that's it. He logged a limited practice today.
Yeah, so he should be good to go.
Yeah, there's one more thing real quick. Z Money said massive upside, 7-5, baby.
Go with the massive upside. There are way too many teams in all of my leagues that are 7-5 right now. Funny enough, one of the fantasy leagues that we're in, nobody's technically eliminated from the playoffs yet. So that's insane.
That's Pee Wee, right?
Yeah, I'm the 6th seed at 5-7.
I don't know how I'm not eliminated yet. I'm like 4-6.
I'm 5-7, the 6th seed. The 12 teams 4-8. So
true.
Yeah, every week matters coming down the stretch there. So win out and I'm in. But back to DFS. So like I said, I'm not a big fan of the Kansas City stacks. On the other side of the ball, I'm not a big fan of the Cincinnati stacks. Who are the obvious ones? Burrow, Chase, Higgins, all expensive. However, you do need to grab pieces of these games. You can grab one of those receivers individually. Back to Kansas City, I like Isaiah Pacheco, $5,700. He's a great value buy. And like I said, what you're looking for is you're looking for parts of offenses that are going to score a lot of points. Pacheco does not get a lot of receiving work. He has one target in the last 3 weeks. So he's very touchdown dependent. Kansas City scores a lot of points. They're projected to win. Got 28 on the slate. They are the highest projected scoring team this week. So Pacheco, if you're looking for some value at 5,700, right there. So
I got a question real quick, Ryan.
What's up?
Is DFS standard or PPR?
It's PPR.
Okay.
DFS is PPR. It's not tight end premium. It's not any of that other, weird, usually dynasty stuff, but it's PPR.
Okay.
And then defensive scoring is just based on points given up, sacks, turnovers, stuff like that. And then the other game, I like Trevor Lawrence stacked with almost anybody, not Christian Kirk. Trevor Lawrence continues to be one of the cheapest values in DFS, and he is one of the easiest quarterback schedules going down the stretch. Detroit gives up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks this year, and at only $5,900, it's very easy to build a stack around Trevor Lawrence. So I'm at the Jacksonville-Detroit game. On the other side of the ball, Jared Goff's even cheaper than Trevor Lawrence. I think he's only $5,300. So, and Jacksonville gives up the 30th most points to quarterbacks, or third most points to quarterbacks. I like the Trevor Lawrence side more because Zay Jones, who has 10 and 14 targets the last 2 weeks and has really come on specifically against man coverage, which Detroit runs a lot of, seems to be the go-to target for Trevor Lawrence. So he's really coming on the last couple weeks. I like Zay Jones. That's a great value stack right there. You're talking less than $10,000 on your stack. And then what you can do is you can roll back the other side. Jamal Williams is still, again, one of the best value buys in DFS. As long as DeAndre Swift just exists, it's going to keep Jamal Williams' value down in DFS because DeAndre Swift, obviously being, the more spoken out of running back, he's going to keep Jamal Williams' value down. Vegas doesn't want to hedge all their bets on one guy. So, or if you want to go Jared Goff and Jamal Williams, that's probably one of the very few scenarios where I'd say quarterback running back stack works fine, because where Jared Goff scores, fair amount of points against a pretty bad defense, you also get the running back that gets the goal line work with it. If you want to be really bold, you can go on Monroe St. Brown. He's $7,100 though, so you're talking a little bit more on the expensive side. I think that there's better value out there. And then the third game, like I said, I'm not a fan of any of the Kansas City, Cincinnati stacks, but if you want to grab one of those individuals, I would try to avoid Travis Kelce at all possible costs. Just with the whole tight end landscape, you can throw a dart somewhere else at somebody that has a good matchup and probably score a decent amount of points versus spending almost $8,000 on one guy.
We got one more question from V-Money.
Go ahead.
He asked them on last one before I have to leave. I'm starting Olave and Ayuk as my wide receiver. Should I pick up Christian Watson? Then is Kupp coming back or trade him?
Kupp's out for the season, so if you can trade him to anybody, if this is redraft and anybody's actually willing to take him in a trade, they don't really pay attention, so go ahead and do that by all means necessary. But Kupp's not coming back this season, so if you can trade him, go ahead.
I like Christian Watson. That'd be a good pickup if you get him.
Oh yeah, he's clearly taking over as the number one, and he's explosive, big play.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to see a ton of volume, but he can make stuff happen with the ball in his hands. So
I like that. Good question, Z-Money.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in this week. But yeah, so I've talked about my stacks and run backs. So a stack run back, obviously, if you haven't picked up on that by now, is quarterback, pass catcher. Run back means you're taking somebody else from the other team, same game, because you want as many shares as you can get. You don't want to stack your lineup with just one game or one team, because say I stack my entire team as much as I can with the Los Angeles Chargers and Justin Herbert has a bad game, you're not cashing in DFS. So it's better to have some diversity in your lineup. No fly zone. Let's go to the other end of that. Don't even bother. Alvin, I know you're looking at New Orleans down there, and you're like, but Alvin Kamara is way overvalued in DFS right now. He has not produced. He's not getting the volume. Stay away from him. Let him prove to you that he is actually a good value buy in DFS. So if he pops off this week, that's fine. Let him pop off in somebody else's, the other 10% of people's lineups. Don't worry about it. Denver, only one I'm picking up is their defense, maybe. Indianapolis, no, not against Dallas, because as we can see, they're implied to score 17 points. And I think I said this at some point on the show. They're tied for second lowest or their third lowest on the slate. And again, you're not smarter than Vegas. The Rams, that's kind of obvious that Stafford's out, Kupp's out, Robinson's out. They can't block for anybody. So Houston, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Maybe Dameon Pierce, but I don't trust a single wide receiver. I don't trust the quarterback. I think there's better value elsewhere. Now, Atlanta's interesting because they are projected to score 22 points, or rather implied to score 22 points. But where's it going to come from? It can come from Cordell Patterson. It can come from Tyler Algier. It can come from Drake London, maybe. Maybe Marcus Mariota runs it. You never know where it's going to come from. There's just too much inconsistency with the way that the points are scored in that lineup. I'm fading the whole thing. So that has some plays. Chicago, sounds like Justin Fields will be back this week, and David Montgomery. That's the other quarterback running back stack I would have for two very obvious reasons. One, Chicago runs the hell out of the ball with Justin Fields, and there's no Khalil Herbert in the backfield, so David Montgomery is going to get 90% of the snaps anyway. And option B, did anybody watch the game Monday night where the Eagles, what they just did to the Packers? They ran for 363 yards. There's no reason that Justin Fields and David Montgomery shouldn't have a field day. And David Montgomery valued at $6,000. He's probably the biggest must start in my lineup if you want to go that route. Cleveland has some plays. I like Amari Cooper. I like David Njoku as a low tight end one. I'm iffy on Deshaun Watson. If you really, really, really want to, go ahead. I would advise against it. Dude hasn't played football in a long time. Washington, Terry McLaurin with Taylor Heineke there. Antonio Gibson has some receiving and touchdown upside. If you really want to search for value, if you really want to reach for a guy you don't think will be owned a lot, which is another aspect of DFS, I don't personally worry about it too much, but when there's a super obvious start, like last week, Jeff Wilson facing Houston, as I touched on before, gives up the most fantasy points to running backs, and then Raheem Mostert was announced out. At $5,900, he was the easiest must start in the lineup. Guys like that I try to avoid because you sit back and you think about it and you're like, okay, everybody's going to build their lineup around this guy. How does that help separate me from the pack? It doesn't. So time to move on. New England, I like Ramondre Stevenson. I like Ramondre Stevenson a lot all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. New York Giants, Saquon. He's not a fantastic value, but he is going to get the bulk of the work. And if you really think, you're trying to get some value somewhere, Daniel Jones, but that's about it. Tennessee, Derrick Henry, obviously the best. Ryan Tannehill is always a sneaky start, not against Philadelphia this week. He is not, but Derrick Henry he's going to get his this week. I imagine that he will get his this week. The Eagles struggle to stop the run. New York Jets, not a fan of Mike White. As much as he just went off last week, I need to see a prove-it week. However, the Vikings' pass defense, terrible. They let wide receivers go wild on them all the time. Garrett Wilson, love it. Elijah Moore, don't love it. But if you're looking to stack a bunch of studs and you want somebody for $3,700, Elijah Moore's right there. Pittsburgh, not a huge fan of Kenny Pickett. If Najee Harris plays, I like him. If George Pickens, plays, I like him. I think that he has a good matchup. Tampa Bay, you can start Tom Brady if you want. I think it's the cheapest he's ever been in DFS this week in his whole career. Mike Evans, no, but Chris Godwin, yes. And if Leonard Fournette is somehow out again, Rachaad White is somebody to keep an eye on. Him last week was, again, one of those scenarios where it's like Leonard Fournette missed the game. Rachaad White was only $5,700 DFS. Completely avoided him because I figured everybody would. Green Bay, I do like Christian Watson. He's cheaper still, a big play guy. Aaron Jones, I actually like A.J. Dillon this week if you're really searching for value. I would fade both quarterbacks, though, whether it be Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love starting this week. It sounds like it'll be Rodgers. Baltimore's had kind of a sketchy offense. You've got Lamar. You've got Mark Andrews. I think Lamar's a little overvalued right now. I would probably pump the brakes on him. Gus Edwards is a nice solid value play as long as J.K. Dobbins, which I presume he will be left on IR this week. I don't think he plays. Strong recommends. Here's where we start getting into the offenses that are top tier. Doesn't really matter about the matchup. We got to have pieces of this. We've got Miami. You can run to a Hill, to a Waddle stack, and then come back with, George Kittle or not Christian McCaffrey. He's a little expensive, but somebody along those lines.
So what about Tua and Jeff Wilson?
I'm not a fan of that just because of how much they throw the football. Jeff Wilson, a lot of his value has come in touchdowns and receptions. So he's taking a lot of the snaps. He's not really taking a bulk of the carries. And this is a game that is a tough matchup for him. San Francisco has just a very good defense, but they have a very good run defense. And I expect them to have to throw the ball. I think that Vegas is implying that they're going to score 46.5 points. It's another game that you can get shares in. Try and get somebody from one, if not both sides of the ball there. Vegas, I touched on earlier. Carr, very sneaky maybe. Adams and Jacobs. I tried so desperately to fit Josh Jacobs anywhere in my lineup, but at $7,900, it was just a little too expensive for what I was doing. I was losing value in places that I didn't want to lose value. So you can build a lineup. You'd have to come back with a Kareem Hunt, an Elijah Moore, somebody that really has no floor at all and could potentially lose you your DFS matchup. So I would avoid it. But if you can find a workaround that you're comfortable with, Josh Jacobs, obviously a very solid play here against the second worst run defense in the NFL. Minnesota, again, that game's implied to score for Minnesota's implied to score 24 points. Yes, New York has a good pass defense. However, Minnesota has a very good offense. We saw what Justin Jefferson just did to Buffalo. We saw what Justin Jefferson just did his last matchup against New England. Plus, they're coming off of a mini bye. They played last Thursday. They got a Sunday game today. Seattle just puts up points. They have a really bad defense, but they put up a ton of points. So, who do they play this week? They play the Rams.
Mhm.
Rams are not a good team, and they're projected to score 17 points. That's how bad Seattle's defense is projected to be. However, Seattle's implied to score 25. That's a good number right there. I want a DK Metcalf. I want a Tyler Lockett. Ken Walker's been a little touchdown dependent for me recently, but he has gotten some receiving work to subside that. So he's a little bit of a riskier play now, but you can fit him in the lineup. And if you want great value, go ahead and stack Geno Smith with one of those receivers. I think Geno Smith is under $6,000 again. I don't know why.
I like that. I like that stack.
What's up?
I like that stack. Like Geno and Metcalf, that's a good stack.
Yeah. Just depends on where Jalen Ramsey's going to be. I think Jalen Ramsey will spend a lot of time on DK Metcalf, but Jalen Ramsey's been very susceptible this year. He's not been the Jalen Ramsey of the past. Now we get into the gotta-haves. A majority, half of your lineup, there's got to be multiple dudes in your lineup from these games. We've got Philadelphia against Tennessee. I'm looking at the pass-catching side of Philadelphia's offense here. Tennessee's defense has been better, but their starting quarterbacks are a little banged up, and they were never really a fantastic pass defense. They have a very good front seven. So if you want to get really expensive, Jalen Hurts stacked with A.J. Brown, stacked with Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is my favorite value play from this game. He's only $6,200. And he's seen 7, 7, 7, and 10 targets the last 4 games. So he's getting – it's not like A.J. Brown's just completely overshadowing him. Without Dallas Goedert being in the lineup, Devontae Smith is the clear number 2 receiver there. He's going to get the volume. And, you know, if you really believe that A.J. Brown's about to have a coming-out party against his own team, go ahead and make him your top play, your expensive play in the lineup. Cincinnati – I like T. Higgins here. $7,200 is a little bit cheaper than Jamar Chase, who is supposed to be back. If Joe Mixon was still out, I would point all signs at Tyler Boyd at $5,300. But Mixon's coming back, so it sounds like that Tyler Boyd's going to be a little bit on the odd man out again. But if you want great value, like I said, you are trying to get pieces of these high-scoring games, and this game has the most implied points. Tyler Boyd's only $5,300. He could score a touchdown. He could go for 560 and a touchdown, and he's probably going to be less than 10% owned everywhere because Jamar Chase is coming back. San Francisco, you can always have one of their running backs. Christian McCaffrey's $8,600, though. The best value play, in my opinion, here, George Kittle. Miami is terrible against defending tight ends. George Kittle is only $5,000, which, as far as tight ends go, is not bad. George Kittle is a very good tight end. Detroit, like I said earlier, Goff, great value. Jamal Williams, as long as DeAndre Swift exists, is going to be a great value for DFS. Not a huge Amon-Ra St. Brown fan, $7,100. And it's because of the next point here. There's nobody else on Detroit you can trust as a pass catcher.
True that. Ken Brandt asks how much Geno Smith will cost him.
I don't remember his okay, I was unmuted. I don't remember his exact value. I can look it up, though.
Mine isn't loading. I would for you.
Let's see. I unfortunately am not going to reveal my starting lineup to you guys because it is me versus you guys. However, if you follow my advice, I followed my own advice. We can probably have a similar lineup. And I do wish everybody the best of luck. So Geno Smith is actually $6,100, so he's a very great value. But yeah, so we're in San Francisco. No, we're in Detroit territory. Like I said, not a fan of Amon-Ra St. Brown. Very high number. Obviously, he will receive a lot of the targets. So if you can fit him into your lineup, go for it. However, I think that there's better value elsewhere. Jacksonville just screams value. I don't know. Whoever makes the DFS values has an axe to grind with Jacksonville. And me, as a DFS manager, totally okay with it. Trevor Lawrence, less than $6,000. Travis Etienne, $6,400. Christian Kirk's only $6,300. Zay Jones is less than $5,000. Evan Ingram is $3,000 this week against one of the worst defensive teams against tight ends and the worst defense in the NFL. Like, if you want to stack Lawrence and Ingram, that's totally fine. And that's less than $9,000. You can add so much value to your lineup anywhere else.
That's a good stack.
Ingram's a tight end one play this week. So
he's been sneaky good this year, too.
Yeah, he's been very sneaky good this year. Mostly because tight ends this year have been garbage. Got the Chargers. Not a lot of great value here. Josh Palmer, if Mike Williams is out, is a great value. Gerald Everett, as I touched on earlier, $4,400. Great tight end matchup. Great value there. However, outside of that, you have your Herberts, you have your Allens. They're not great values, but they will produce for you. So go ahead and grab any share of that game you can. I almost flexed Gerald Everett this week because it's such a good value, but I hate flexing tight ends. Dallas, again, I don't play in DFS matchups that include Sunday night games. However, they are implied to score the second most points on the slate, so we can't leave them out here. You've got Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, who are expensive. Zeke continues to be cheap, and Tony Pollard as well. Tony Pollard's a little bit more expensive than Zeke. However, this is a good offense that's going to get a lot of goal line opportunities, and Zeke takes those. He's got a lot of touchdown upside on a weekly basis. And then, like I said, Kansas City, not a lot of great value there outside of Pacheco. If Hardman's out, he's on IR. If Tony misses this game, excuse me. I am not used to talking this much. If Tony misses this game, maybe you can take a shot with MVS. Like I said, you are trying to search for any value you can in these games because Vegas is throwing a big red sign up at you that says this team is going to score a lot of points. Go get it. So for me, it's Pacheco. I think he easily screams the most value here, particularly if Kansas City gets out to a lead. He's had 15 carries or more each of the last 3 games. He did score a touchdown last week. He is a little bit of a touchdown-dependent play. Like I said earlier, he is not a receiving back, 1 target in the last 3 weeks. But he still has touchdown upside in a good offense that's going to score a lot of points. So that's the way I look at it, right? I try and use all the indicators, all the clues. I don't break this chart down like this every week. I just kind of eyeball it. I'm like, okay, Jacksonville and Detroit, obviously 2 good offenses. And as I stated, they both have some good values there. Minnesota, New York, I think that there's good value in that game. I'm kind of, despite their over-under being 47, I'm fading that Cleveland-Houston game a little bit because I think I'm not buying the Deshaun Watson hype of boosting Cleveland up to be this elite offense yet. Obviously, I just sat here and told you to listen to Vegas. They're probably going to prove me wrong on this one, but that's one I'm okay being wrong on. I'm not going to take the risk on a guy that hasn't played football in 700 days. That's just not who I am. So that's how I play DFS. You got to look for balancing your lineup. You can't stack Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and then wonder why you finished middle of the pack and didn't cash out every week. They're going to produce for you, but what's the rest of your lineup look like? You taking crapshoots on guys that like Kareem Hunt. Yeah, Houston's got the worst run defense in the NFL. The last time Kareem Hunt had over 10 touches was like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I'm not betting on him to have double-digit touches and a touchdown. There's no proof of that. There's no evidence of that. Garrett Wilson coming on strong. I know that game is not the highest scoring on the slate. I know that they have Mike White. I feel like New York's going to have to throw the football against Minnesota. And I feel like that they're going to throw the football to, not Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore had a coming out party last week. He had 2 targets, caught both of them. One of them was a long touchdown. Little fluky. I need to see a little bit more from him before I start talking about him as a great value. But if you are really up here sitting here saying, screw Ryan, I'm not taking his advice, I'm stacking Kelsey and Mahomes, go ahead and put Elijah Moore in your lineup too. Go ahead and put Kareem Hunt in your lineup too. Let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, I've learned a lot off of this episode, Ryan. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. I learned that I can't talk as much as I think I can. And that my throat is super, super dry. But I'm going to escape out of here. Definitely going to close out of this because my laptop is super slow now. So yeah, that's how I play DFS. Again, disclaimer in the beginning of the show, disclaimer now. There is no guaranteed way to win in DFS every single time. Injuries happen. Guys come out and just have a bad game. There are ways to set yourself up to be more successful. Look at the clues that the people who do this for a living are giving you. Look where the value is. Zay Jones, less than $5,000, has over 10 targets each of the last 2 games. Very good in man coverage, which Detroit runs a lot. That's a great value. Garrett Wilson's only $5,300 in DFS. That's a great value. Any tight end, Evan Ingram, Gerald Everett, even George Kittle's probably a great value at $5,000 when you're comparing him to $8,000 Travis Kelce and $7,000 Mark Andrews. Those are 2 guys that I'm never, ever, ever going to tell you to start in DFS because you are losing significant value at a position you can go get it somewhere else. Is Travis Kelce probably going to be the top tight end every week? Sure. But if Travis Kelce scores 22 points at $8,000, why wouldn't I want to go get Evan Ingram at $3,000 is going to get me 15 points, and I can go get a better wide receiver that's going to pop off for 2 touchdowns. Yeah, so it's all about managing your risks. Like, yeah, you can have some definites. You can have Mahomes. You're going to pay for it, and that's just what DFS is. So let these guys make their mistakes, and you can follow my advice. You cannot follow my advice, but I do cash out more often than I lose. So take that for what it's worth.
Now, what apps are these on? Just for people who don't know.
DraftKings has DFS. I know FanDuel has DFS. Prize Picks does DFS. And all the values and salary caps are different. They're all probably proportional to one another. But I know FanDuel, their salary cap's a little higher. However, their player values are also a little higher than, say, DraftKings or Prize Picks. So,
FanDuel is 60,000.
Yeah,
I think
DraftKings is 50,000. So
I think you said Zay Jones, I think 5,400. I think on FanDuel he was 6,000.
Yeah, he's 4,900 in DraftKings. So I am not by any way endorsing any of these apps. So just pick what you're comfortable with.
What's the one Drew Brees peddling?
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to Drew Brees. I kind of forgot about Drew Brees, to be honest with you. Not forgot about him, but I didn't know that he was still on TV.
Yeah, he does commercials, but I don't know what Drew Brees is peddling either.
That's the beauty about streaming services and watching Red Zone. I don't even know what commercials are. So, that's how I play DFS. I realized that over the last few weeks, I'd been mentioning good DFS plays and not really realizing that a lot of people didn't know how to play DFS or what DFS even was. So, here's
I definitely learned a lot.
Here's to those that take my advice and then, 3 of their starters get injured and then you come back next Wednesday and cuss me out. Or maybe you can't wait till Wednesday and you come on the Tuesday show and cuss me out. That's fine. I'll eat it. It gets frustrating sometimes. But, hey, like I said, I like winning money.
Yeah.
And if you like winning money, don't go telling your friends these secrets because this isn't a me versus the house thing. It's a me versus you thing. So I'm here to win. Tim, you got any closing remarks before we get out of here?
Thursday nights tomorrow, don't play your Thursday night players in your flex positions.
Get your Thursday night players out of your flex positions. Follow us on Twitter every Sunday morning. I'm asking for start-sit questions, so go ahead and fire away with those questions. At BSing Sports, it's right there.
Going away.
Yeah, I got like the inverted camera thing, so I got to figure out which way to point most of the time. But that being said, we're getting out of here. I can't talk anymore. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Those of you on Spotify, thank you for listening here at BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network, where we do a little BS. And apparently I talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good night, guys.